M1114 to the 1151, significant improvements in the type of Humvee. Rather than just redeploy these to the United States, we transferred control, we reconditioned a number in country and transferred control to the government of Iraq. Now also, when you look at what the government of Iraq has done, early on, most of this equipment that was provided to the security forces was based on gifting or donations from the United States government to the government of Iraq. Now they pay for more than 90% of their equipment. So all, the aircraft that they have, the patrol boats, the modern patrol boats they have that they've bought through the Foreign Military Sales program, the M1 tanks, the 140 M1 tanks that the Iraqi Army now has were actually bought from the United States. They're manufactured in the United States and shipped specifically to Iraq to field to the Iraqi Army. And as part of that contract, we provided and are still providing training for those who operate the tanks, who shoot the tanks, who maintain the tanks. But it's part of a contract with government-to-government contract in the Foreign Military Sales Program. The equipment that we're transferring to the government of Iraq as part of these base transitions is not military specific. Now, some of the equipment that we have transitioned to the State Department is in fact military specific equipment. And one example is our mine-resistant vehicles, the MRAPs, that, as you know, have a V-shaped hull and give the State Department a specific capability for more protection, more than they would get from an up-armored Suburban, for example, to give them ground mobility if they should need to use that from either the embassy in Baghdad or the consulates general in Basra or Erbil or the consulate in Kirkuk.
General, we genuinely appreciate you taking some time out of your evening and to join us here this morning in the Pentagon. And with finishing up the questions, we'd like to turn it back over to you for any closing remarks that you may have. Over to you, sir.
Sure. And first of all, thanks again for joining us today. I think it's important that we stay engaged through obviously through regular communication with what's going on in Iraq. And from somebody who has served here for a number of years and watched the development over time, I've got to say that I can't help but be inspired by where we are now. But I recognize up front that we have gotten to this point because of a lot of sacrifice on behalf of the Iraqi people, as well as the U.S. service members who have served here, their families who have supported them, the brave civilians we've had serving here over the years, and honestly, all of the American people. They've given us tremendous support every step of the way. Regardless of their politics, we have enjoyed 100% support, and to all we owe a great debt. But the opportunities that the Iraqi people have are none like they have ever had in the past. And just a couple of comments. One, democracy. When we saw a number of protest movements throughout the region in the early part of this year, and some of those, of course, are still going on. But whether it was Egypt or Tunisia or Libya or now Syria, we had protests here in Iraq too. But the fundamental nature of those protests were different, because the first comment that was driving the protests in all those other places was that the people did not have a choice in their future. They did not have a vote. They didn't have a choice of what type of government they were going to have or who in fact was running that government. And the protests in Iraq were different because they recognized that. And they had the freedom here to protest without fear of retribution, unlike the opportunities that they would have had under Saddam Hussein. They recognized that. And so the protests here were about the performance of the government and whether or not the government was providing the people the situation they deserve. And so that's just one example. Now, I think democracy here continues to evolve, and it will continue to evolve in the future. But the opportunities that the Iraqi people have now are far different than what they had in the past. Another example is economic development. A number of things have come together for Iraq's economy. And I think, honestly, they're on the verge of really reaching their economic potential in a couple of years. But it's going to still take a couple of years to get the infrastructure, especially oil export infrastructure for electricity, to such a point where the Iraqi people can reach their potential. And lastly, the security situation. You know, the security here is not what the Iraqi people deserve. We really do believe that they deserve a country that is stable, that is sovereign, and that is self-reliant. And they don't have the stability, they don't have the security yet that they really deserve. But they're really headed in the right direction. When we look at the performance of the Iraqi security forces over the last years, how they have fundamentally changed, how the culture of the security forces has changed to one that understands its role in a democracy, to one that to a set of security forces that are learning organizations with an empowered non-commissioned officer corps. These are things that the U.S. troops who have served here have really helped move these people in a different direction than they were headed in the past. So, you know, again, we think that the Iraqi people and their government is on the right road. And what my greatest hope is that they're able to take advantage of all the opportunities that they now have because of all of our shared sacrifice over the past years. But what I hope is that they're able to take advantage of the opportunities that they have to reach their potential. Thanks.
General Buchanan, thank you. We appreciate you spending the time with us, and have a good night, sir.
Okay, take care.